So let me start creating a layout. Guys, again, I'm planning to explain about what is layout. And since we had a discussion earlier, today also I'm going to explain about how are we going to create a layout using CSS, what sort of properties that we're supposed to use it. Since we had a discussion earlier in order to create layout, now when we are planning to create a page, so let me start preparing some sort of layout. Guys, listen carefully. I'm going to draw a couple of layouts. A layout, generally it is a web page. How are we going to divide the page into multiple partitions? Now if you look after an application, if you take an example of any application, listen carefully. Page 1. For page 1 also we have to build one different layout. Header, maybe this is image slide bar, left sidebar, right sidebar, and footer. Think about it. This is one page, and you can also go for different pages. Page 2. In this page 2, think that we also have header, footer. In case if you want a left sidebar, right sidebar, there's different layout that I am drawing, and I don't want slide image slider to display in page 2. I just wanted to restrict myself to not display slide. This is how my design says. Think about it. And I do have a page 3. This design generally designer is going to give a design for us. If I'm going for a page 3, and my page 3 has header and left sidebar and just footer. And I do have think about it. I have one more page, that is page 4. This page 4, think that we have header and right sidebar and footer. If this is a case, okay, so all we need is we have to design these particular pages. So if you wanted to create this kind of layout, any kind of layout, so we have to use a combination of HTML is for designing a page plus CSS is for styling a page. Now this layout, if you wanted to create, how are we going to create? By using HTML. Now guys, initial step 1, we have to use HTML to design a page. Step 2, you have to use CSS properties to align this. Here, everywhere, even if you are using HTML5, this is header part. You can use header tag. And this can also be created by section tag. Parent is section. This can be created by using division. This can also be division. At last, this can be used footer tag. Now similarly, this is also header. This can be created by using header tag, and this can be a division or section and division, and this can be footer. Listen carefully. Even this is again a header. This is a division. This is again section. This is footer. In the place of division, we can still use header. Header tag can also be a section. This can also be a section, and this is footer. Like that. First, we have to use semantic or non-semantic elements to create a web page. Once the layout is designed, then within the layout, we must have to go for different kind of elements to place. Okay, so to do so, first you guys have to pick up what is the best elements which are there in HTML to create a layout. Since we already had a discussion in the older version of HTML, people can use division tag to create a layout. in the newer versions of HTML5, we can also use section, header, footer, navigation, and some sort of main. These are the layout related tags. Once the tags are finished, then you have to use CSS. In CSS, in order to create a layout, CSS has float property. Float is one example. CSS also has Flexbox. CSS also has grid system. This is how grid, CSS grids. Now this is a older concept. We don't want to talk much about this today. This is older way, and you can even divide your page into multiple partitions using float, but this is older way. Now the Flexbox is the one which many websites have been used, and grid also sometimes we are going to use it. Now first let me talk about how are we going to create a layout using Flexbox. Guys, my sincere advice for all of you, first you understand what is a layout. Layout is nothing but if you have maybe 1 acre space, why do I have this space? Think about it. I have an empty space. In this empty space, how many partitions that we are going to divide? Now, if you consider the whole section, this whole section, if I consider that this is row R1, then this is called as C1 column 1, column 2, and column 3. Now here, if you try to see, R1 is equal to, it's a sum of R1 C1 plus R1 C2 plus R1 C3. So C1, C2, and C3. These guys are columns. Now, even if you wanted to create the columns, first you have to design a layout. Even since it is a 3-column layout, guys, listen carefully. I'm going to write first. Let me go for a section. Section is my parent. I have to draw a tree structure. Once the section is done, now this is going to divide into 3 parts. Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. Either you can use section or division. Now, even if you see section also, section and all these guys are generally, by nature, these guys are block level element, my dear friends. Since these guys are block level elements, what I'm going to do, if you execute it and all the divisions are going to display, in the format of block level, they are going to display in a web page one by one. But literally, let me see this, all the divisions, all 3 of them, they will try to display within our section. Since section is also block level, they are displaying one by one. But according to our requirements, we have to display these divisions who are children's side by side. That is where this Flexbox comes into your picture. Either you can also use float or you can also use flex to create a layout. Now see, first I would like to explain how we're going to create a layout using float for you people to understand, though we are not going to use this float many cases because the float is an older way of creating a layout. I will try to create float and flex today. The grid system is something that you people try out as an assignment. So if you guys are facing any difficulties to understand, then come back, we will be helping you all. Now, so let me create an example layout using float or flex. Now I'm just coming back. Let me start writing a code. Now within our example, okay, in the project name, I'm going to create a folder. I'm creating layouts. So let me create one folder, layouts. Within this folder, I'm going to use 3-column layout. Guys, listen carefully. First, let me 3-column layout. 3-column. Okay. So first, we'll try to build 3-column or 4-column or 2-column, a different kind of layouts we'll try to build. Then we are going to keep all this 3, 4, 5-column layout into a single page. Then we can able to easily complete our page. Now even whatever the page that you talk about, all the pages are going to start from layout, either single column layout or 2-column layout. Okay. Now today let me talk about 3-column layout. So then I'll be keep explaining about multiple columns. 3-column layout using HTML plus CSS. This cannot be achievable by using HTML alone. This can be possible by using HTML plus CSS. Now script. Sorry, not reject. So here, as discussed, so if it is a 3-column layout, first I am going to take one parent. Since a parent is also block level. This parent is going to consist of 3 divisions are 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A 3-column layout that I am creating. Guys, listen carefully. I wrapped all these 3 divisions into a single parent. Even the parent is also block level. All the 3 children is also block level. As we discussed initially, we must have to use a block level element to create a layout. So always either you have to use division or section or HTML5 semantic elements to create a layout. Since I discussed 3-column layout, so there is no left sidebar separate tag is not available. For right sidebar, left sidebar, there is no separate tag. That's why if the semantic tag is not there for a portion, my sincere advice for all of you, try to use either section or division. Next, if I'll execute this particular page, you can even see that all 3 divisions you can see they are displaying one by one. Inspect an element, try to observe, take inspector. This is a tool. If you keep using it, and if you wrap on top of parent, now the parent is also block level element. Okay, so the section is a block level element. Even the children's you see here 1, 2, 3. All these 3 divisions are also block level elements. Now I have used the right tag for layout. Since their behavior is block level, they are blocking a complete row. Now I would request this block level element, block level children's, I would request them to display side by side. That's where the layout concept comes into a picture. Okay, so the moment when you guys are so if you are planning to convert a divisions into a block level element, so by default divisions are block level element. Now you have to convert these 3 block level elements into inline. If that is the case, guys, listen carefully. I'm going to achieve this by using a float, and the same I will try to achieve by using flex also. Now then, able to understand how are we going to build by using multiple ways, but each one of them has a different significance importance is there in CSS. The story is different. Now I'm coming back to a section. So instead of writing inline CSS, for you people to understand, I am writing internal CSS. Guys, listen carefully. Internal CSS I am writing. Now section I am selecting. Section, since I used the tag selector, which is going to select an element whose tag name is section. Line number 6 selects an element whose tag name is section. Then we are going to write a properties here. By under flower bracket, we are going to write a properties. Now here, let me select my parent float. Guys, float left I am using. Float is a property, left is a value. When I see now, before giving a float property, now let me give background color for you people to understand. I am giving some gray background. Let me comment out this float. For time being, I am commenting out the float, and let me come back. If I reload, now you can see that my parent is completely a block level element, and even the children which are wrapped inside the parent is also a block level element. Okay, so now what you have to observe, the moment when I give float left to a block level parent, now go on reload it. Now you can see the section is become inline element. Section is completely become inline element. The property float and the value left, what it is going to do, it will start floating an element extremely left to the document, and which will also convert a block level element into inline. Now if you try to see all 1, 2, 3, even though 1 is placed inside a division, 2 and 3 is also placed inside a division, since division is a block level element, they are displaying one by one. If you are planning to place 1, 2, 3 in side by side, their parent is completely turned into inline. Since the parent does not contain a space, because parent is converted into inline, we have given float left property. If parent does not contain a space, how are we going to display children's into side by side? Is that possible? It is highly impossible, since the parent does not contain. After giving float left property, again you guys have to give, you can see the right hand side I am writing a properties on the fly in a browser to see the changes. 100% I just gave. Now you see here, forcefully I displayed an element. I converted my parent into float left element, and with 100% I just gave. Next, the children's also I have to, now children's still they are block level element. Now you should request children's also floated elements. Now guys, listen carefully. Parent I am giving 100%. Now similarly, I should also come back to a section space division. This is an example for Descendant Selector. Okay, so here the line number 11 says we are selecting a division who is inside a section. This particular filter selects a divisions who are inside a section. In this example, 16, 17, 18, all these 3 divisions, since they placed inside a section, they are going to block level. Guys, next what we are doing, now section, space, division, since they are selected, all 3 also I am giving float left. So that float left property, what it is going to do, you see here, now one is division 2 also converted into inline. Division 3 also converted into inline. The float left property has abilities to convert block level elements into inline. Again, let me repeat. The float left property is converting a block level element into inline. That is what the power of float property. Next, you guys have to understand. Now 1, 2, 3. All these 1, 2, 3s are placed in a single row. Right after 3, whatever the space which is available, that is not going to utilize it properly. You can see here all 3 divisions turned into inline, but the parent width is 100%. The children are not using 100% properly. Again, you should request your children to utilize the parent width. To do so, we have to give the width property for a children's width 33.3%. If I'll give 33 plus 33, 33.3, it will become 100%. Next, you can see here, first division, second division, third division, equally taken all this, width, 100% is divided by 3 elements. Tomorrow, in case, if a new element is going to add, listen carefully, this is a very important point to remember. If division 4 is getting added into your, now what happens? Now see, the division 4 is displaying next row. Why? Because the 3 divisions itself, they started displaying in a single row. Why? Because the width you have already given 33.3. 33.3 into 3, if you are, three elements, then the 100%, 99.9% is already occupied by 3. The fourth element is also expecting 33.3%. Since the space is not available in a row, that is where the fourth element is displayed into a next row. This is disturbing a layout. In case if you are planning to display 4 columns into a single row, again you must have to compromise on a width. Now out of 100 divided by 4, then this becomes 25%. Here we have to compromise on a width, my dear friends. That too, we have to compromise on a width. Similarly, we should also keep updating or keep changing the width. As long as if new additional elements comes into a row, we have to keep changing the width if you are using float. Now 4 elements, again we have to recalculate, and the width 25% that we have to give. Width 25%. Make sense? Width 25%. Tomorrow, if for example, all of a sudden the 4th element, for dynamic applications, we never know how many values comes into a picture. If again think that only 3 elements are there in a row, if 3 elements are there, again if you reload, you see here right after third, 3 elements, 25 plus 25 and 25, then you started become 75, but still after 75, then 25% is still unusable. You should not even write such kind of code. Now that is one of the drawback when you are working on real-time examples, real-time applications. We never know whether we are going to get 2 elements or 3 elements or 4 elements according to our dynamic nature. So we have to keep adjusting the width. If you are using float, dynamically if the new elements are getting added or subtracted from a row, then we have to keep adding, or we have to keep calculating the width manually. That will create a template, it will disturb the templates. To avoid this kind of issues while working on a real-time applications, that is where we must have to go for flex. Now the same layout, guys, listen carefully how I am going to, now since 3 elements are there, 33.3%. Now the same layout, what I am going to do, let me create one more section, and under the section I'm going to use division 4, 5, 6. Let me use 4, 5, 6. If you come back, and also I'm giving for a section margin bottom, I'm just giving margin underscore bottom, maybe 5 pixels margin bottom I'm planning to give. That's fine. Now see here, since section and division we have already selected in CSS, wherever that HTML structure follows the same CSS kind of properties, all the rules are going to apply. Now in order to, since first layout, this particular 3-column layout, we have used float. Now I wanted to apply these 4 properties only for a first section. I don't want to apply for a second section. The case, guys, listen carefully. I am separating these guys by using float example, float ex, float example, and one more class I am giving flex example, flex ex. float ex, flex ex. Now, since instead of using a tag selector, earlier we had only one section. Now we have two sections. For first section, I have to give some different properties. For a second section, I have to give a different properties. In that case, to select only a first section, section dot float ex. What does it mean? Guys, this is going to select an element which has a class floatx, and that element must be a section. Even if you guys have used float ex for a division, this filter is not going to apply. Why? Because here this clear filter clearly says that we are selecting a section whose class is equal to float ex. In our case, it is going to select a 19th section, which won't even select a flex ex section. At the same time, section dot, this is how we guys have to write a different kind of filters. I hope you people understand. Float ex. Now, even the line number 12 says we are selecting a division who is under a section with a class floatx, which means that, and three divisions who are under class floatx, example 20, 21, and 22. These three only are going to select. I hope you understand. Next, in order to create again 3-column layout, how are we going to use? By using flex. That is what you must have to understand. This is very important session. Now flex ex. Okay, then dot flex ex. This selects an element whose class is equal to flex ex. This selects an element whose class is equal to flex ex. Guys, listen carefully. After adding this kind of CSS, and if you go on reload, only that float properties applied for a section and a division who is under float exe, but remaining other case, the second section with a division, these guys have not even understood. You can see that it is also disturbing a layout, my dear friends. You see here, the second section is started displaying from top 0, 0. This is disturbing a layout. Even though in the top 0 we have one section, but this is not even displaying there, and this is started displaying from top 0, 0. Got my point? So now what I have to do, my second section, which is block level, and under the second section, all these three divisions are also block level. 1, 2, 3. Now you have to request this 3 children who are block level. We wanted to display them in side by side, inline. So if that is the case, how are we going to achieve? By using flex. That is what I'm going to explain now. Now let me go for, first you try to select an element whose class is equal to flex ex. Dot flex ex, and display is a property, flex is a value. So since you know I'm selecting, guys listen carefully, I selected display flex for a parent. The moment when I selected display flex, you see here in the first row itself the 4, 5, and 6 is started displaying. But again, these guys are displaying in a first row. Why? Because still, if you try to see, since we have used float property, the sum of all these 3 divisions, 33.3 plus 33.3 plus 33.3, then it is still 99.9. Even 1% space is available in the first row. That's why these flex items are still displaying in a row 1. Now that's why when you are creating a layout, better to use a float or flex. Do not use a combination of float or flex. If you use combination of float or flex, these kind of problems that we are going to experience it. Hope you people are aware of it. So to avoid this kind of design issues, my dear friends, what we have to do, right after a section, I wanted to create one division and I am creating NBSP, non-breakable. Now, since I gave empty division after the floated parent, you can see that at the edge in the right hand side, you can even still see here there is some extra 1% space. Now, this is also disturbs when you're creating a layout. Why? Because since the first row is still available 1% space, and if you're using flex parent, that 1% is also be utilized. That's why in just previous example, this space, the second section is started displaying in the first row wherever that 1% is left, and this is going to disturb the layout. To avoid this, guys, I created one empty division. I gave ampersand NBSP. In HTML, ampersand NBSP is nothing but non-breakable space. HTML is a markup language. Even if you are giving multiple spaces, it takes only one space. Remaining all white spaces are going to ignore when you are executing HTML in a web browser. But if you wanted to give forcefully some space, then ampersand NBSP is an entity that is going to give multiple spaces. Hope you understand. Okay, next, this section. In this section, listen carefully. I'm giving an example for display flex. Now, if I'm removing all my CSS properties which I applied for this element, that is there in the right hand side of the element, display flex. Let me select. See, if I'm not selecting my parent as display flex, still parent is block level. You see, how can I say parent is block level? Since it is blocking complete row, I can call this as a block level element. I can call this as block level element. Next, guys, as long as now all the three children who are inside a block level element, even this 4, 5, 6 is also displaying one by one. 4, 5, 6 is also displaying one by one. Next, my dear friends, see here, the moment when I select a parent, if I'm changing the parent display property from block level to display flex, because section is block level, that is what I explained. Now I am converting my block level parent into flexible parent. If I do so, what happens? Since my parent is flexible, within the children's, all these divisions turned into inline. You can see that all these divisions turned into inline. So that is the power of going for display flex. Again, I am telling you. So earlier in the previous example, so if you are planning to convert a block level element into inline, we have used float property. Now float property I have used it for parent. Also float property I have used it for a children's as well. You can even see here for float left I use it for each children, and float property I also use it for parent as well. The float property converts a block level element into inline. But when it comes to this exercise, the moment when I select a parent as display flex, flexible container, the parent is flexible container, automatically the parent is controlling the children who are block level within the parent. Got my point? Now that is the power of going for flex. Okay, now I should also request, even if you try to see division 4, division 5, division 6, all these three guys turned into inline since their parent is flexible container. But now right after 6, whatever the empty space, right after 6th element to till extremely right, the white spaces are there. It looks like empty. How are you going to utilize this empty space, white spaces for all these three children, 4, 5 and 6? That is where for a children's you must have to select again. So let me select a children's word division flex example ex space division. This is also an example for descendant element. We are targeting a division. We use inside an element whose class is equal to flex ex. We are selecting a division who is inside a class flex ex. So this particular filter is going to select all three divisions, 33, 34 and 35. Then we are giving flex property. Flex is a property and 1. So what does it mean? It applies for three divisions, guys. Here, since I gave equal value flex 1, then flex 1 applied for division 4, division 5, division 6, which means my parent width is equally shared three partitions. I mean to say, now three divisions I give flex 1 value. Then since 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, then 3 partitions where parent width is going to be distributed. Now if you go and check, you can even see that equally, if tomorrow, for example, if I am going to add one more element, flex 7, instead of 3 columns, if I am going to use 4 columns, what happens, you see here, if I am using 4 columns, you need not to adjust with the width. So if you go for 5 columns also, you need not worry about it. What happens, 3 columns, 4 columns or 5 columns, whatever it is, automatically the available width of a parent is equally shared to your children. Why? Because now parent is a container element. This container element is a flexible container. That is what this display flex says. And since display flex we gave 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. This parent is completely divided. The parent is block level element. The 100% width is equally shared to all the children. How can I say they are equally sharing? Because for a children's I give flex colon 1 equally. In case if I'll give for a couple of elements, if I'll give flex 2, what happens? Then flex 1, and if I'll give flex 2 for a second element, then the parent width is going to divide flex 1 plus flex 2. Then 1 plus 2 is 3 partitions. Out of 3, 1 partition is applied for one element. The combine of 2 partitions are applying for another element. Okay, so guys, listen carefully what I am trying to explain. Now flex example, for a parent I am selecting, let me give one background color. I am giving some gold color and you will get to know. Since the parent I just gave gold color. Now for each children also, let me start giving what I am going to do. For each children, if I wanted to give it different colors, again you have to select the children's differently. Now that is fine. What I am going to do, since we targeted only 3 column layout, let me use only 3. Even if you are deleting 3 or adding one more extra, the flex box you do not to deal with the width. But if you are planning to achieve it by using a float, what happens? Every time you have to deal with the width. Every time you guys have to deal with the width. I hope you people understand. Okay. Now the differences between Himawan, can you all see my screen and are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how the float property used to create a layout. Similarly, you can also use flex property. The flex property is flexible enough. Tomorrow, if additional new elements comes into a flex container, then the parent will automatically adjust it and it is going to share to your children's. But if you are going for a float, if you are using for a layout, we must have to calculate the width and we should modify the width according to the number of elements who are flowing inside a float parent. Now float property, even you have to give it for a parent, you should also use float property for a children in order to display them side by side. Guys, float left, what it will do, the element is going to start rendering left to the float left. If you use float right, it will start rendering right to the document. Float left, float right, float none, left, right, none. These are the possible values which are available for float property. So along with the float, you should also use width property to ask children to use a certain portion of a parent width. But when it comes to display flex, which is converting a block level children into inline, the moment if the container is flexible, which is converting. Also, guys, listen carefully. If you are planning to reverse these numbers like 456 instead of 456, I would like to display 654 reverse order. If that is the case, instead of changing our UI, I can even go back to my HTML. Here I can also go for in the parent container which has display flex. Here I can also use flex direction, flex hyphen direction. Guys, if I use row reverse, by default is row. If I use row reverse, what happens? You see here. So immediately the items are going to display and without changing the flow or lines of the code in HTML. When we are rendering them in a page, you can see that 6, 4. But literally inside a web page, they are displaying 4, 5, 6. But when we are coming into your design, those guys are displaying in a reverse order. That is what this flex direction is going to say. Flex direction applies only for a flexible container. It won't even apply for other elements. Like that, flex container also has different other elements. Like flex direction, by default value is row, and you can also use row reverse, and one more column, and you can also use column reverse. This is how we can create a layout. Now, if you are familiar with this layout concept, according to our project requirements, then you can even use everywhere. If you try to see, let me go for ExcelR website also. So you please try to understand how are we going to create a layout. If I use ExcelR website, you see here everywhere, no matter whether it is a static application or dynamic applications, everywhere we are using these kind of layouts. It is up to your development company interest whether they want to be using a flex or grid or float. Float is the older. Why? Because everywhere you can see here this this row also, it is divided into two partitions. You can see that this is one column, this is another column. This other column let me go for one more course like data science course or different. We are navigating back to a respective page. In a data science page, Hyderabad, if you try to see the page also, even see this is the first row, this is second row, and this is third row. Even the first row, you guys try to observe, it is divided into two partitions. One partition we have placed a logo. In the second partition, we started placing navigate. This is also one row, I can say. Here, this is also a row where we are displaying breadcrumbs. And this is completely a single row, I can say. Here we are displaying a complete, banner. Banner, we have used a single element. Here, when it comes to this, I can say this is 4 column, 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, and 4 column. Again, when you are coming, this can also be a 2 column layout. This is 1 column, this is another column. Again, if you are coming back, completely a single column. Why? Because this is rectifying completely our process. Now this is also, if you try to see, select your city and India, Hyderabad. This this can also be divided into three columns. You can say one column you are writing a label, second column you are writing a drop down of a country, third column drop down of the city. Then here this is also can be created by using three column. So everywhere, if you try to see, we have used a layout concept only. If you guys are familiar with the layout concept, guys, you can even build any sort of application anywhere in your page. I hope you understand. This is what you must have to use concepts. Even the footer also, if you see, this whole row is divided into four partitions. In that, organization, resources, lines of business, and what are the different ways to pay the fees. This is how we started placing elements inside our page once the layout is created. So that is up to you people. If you are familiar with float, see, the disadvantage of going for a float is every time new elements, because in the dynamic world we never know what sort of elements are keep coming into your row. So sometimes two elements can also be possible, sometimes three elements is possible, sometimes four elements. It is depends upon the requirement. As long as when you are working on a dynamic nature, if you are restricting yourself to use float property, what happens, float is going to create a problems. Every time if the additional elements comes into your picture, you have to adjust the existing deleted or adjusted. Those guys are not flexible. To avoid this kind of calculations and modification in terms of your width, that is where this flex comes into your picture. Flexbox plays very important role. Then CSS Grid. So either you can use grid or you can go for a flex. Flexbox is going to align an items in x-axis, whereas coming to the grid is going to align items even both x and y axis. That can also be possible for creating a layout. Then I would recommend for all of you to go for a flex, and if you guys are interested to go with display grid, you can also use grid, so that you can even learn later. Now if you people are facing any difficulties or to understand the difference between float and flex, you can even put it in the comments, or you can also chat with us. We'll be making a note of all your doubts and comments, and we are going to give you information for all your queries. That's all about the differences between float and flex. And flex also has some sub properties like flex align items. In case, let me guys listen carefully. Now align items. Instead of going for justify content, flex end. Justify content is going to decide the space between each one of them. Here guys, if you are giving justify content for a parent, what happens in case if there is any gap, the items are going to display, the space is going to start utilizing from the flex start. Justify content is going to arrange, or it is going to display the element from extremely left to the element. Flex start, because it is starting position. Flex start, flex end, this is how it is going to display. So the possible justify content is going to arrange, because guys, when are we going to use justify content? If children are not having flex property, if children are having width property, the flex children can also have 300 pixels size scale. Think about it. Each children I started in 300 pixels. When I get 300 pixels, now the parent width, if you are calculating it, then the page size based upon the viewport. So now my laptop screen size resolutions, if you ask, my laptop complete resolution is width 1350. 1350 width. But based upon the viewport, according to the screen resolutions, the width in terms of pixels, it may vary from one device to the another device. In terms of percentages, whatever the space which is available, that available space is considered as with 100%. Available space is considered as with 100%. Hope you people are aware of what is, how are we going to calculate, because don't ever try to think that 100% is equal to 1000 pixels. Guys, 100% means whatever the space which is available in my device, this is 100%. If I load this page in a mobile, and whatever the available horizontal spacing is called as, again, 100% width available space. Even if I load in a very tablets, the available width horizontally, that is called as width 100%. Now when it comes to the pixels may vary from device to device as per their resolution. Now my device resolution in terms of width is 1350. Now you see here in the 1350, I allocated only 300, 300, 300 for 3 divisions. Then it will become 900 only. So out of 1350 minus 900, that is where still empty space. But since I gave for my parent flex end, I gave. You see here, flex start. Sorry, justify content. I start. If I'll use, since row reverse, that's why it started rendering from flex start. This is in a reverse order. The 4, 5, 6. This is displayed. Now right 6, my dear friends, you can see that still there is empty space. And if I use, for example, by default value direction is row. If I use row, what happens? You please try to see that. Now all this flex 4, this division 4, division 5, division 6, guys have started from flex start. Then since there is a gap, say for example here 4, 5, 6, after 6, whatever the empty space, which this is empty. So in some cases, I don't want to display any other new element. I wanted to give only 300 pixels for my each children. The remaining space I may have the gap between my children's. If that is the case, guys, listen carefully. Only 3 elements, but I don't want to equally share for these 3 elements with 100%. I don't want to share equally. Let it be 300 pixels, but remaining 300 plus 300, 300, 900. My parent width is 1370 minus 900. The closely around 470 pixel gap is there here, but I don't want to show that white spaces extremely right. I wanted to display the white spaces in between. How I am going to do that? To do so, then that is where justify content comes into a picture, and in between, to give a gap, I'm going to give align items. Align items if I give, so let me give center. Or sorry, not align items. The spacing between elements you have to use. Instead of using flex start, let me use center. Guys, or space around. If I use center, what happens? Equally that 470 pixels, even in the right hand side also, that space came, equal space, and after 6 also, you can see that instead of displaying the white space extremely right, the white spaces is equally shared, the elements are displayed in center. So elements are displayed center, the white spaces are extremely displayed in the left hand side and right hand side. In case if you wanted to give a space between element, space between, space around in the sense it is coming around the element, the space is coming around the element. You see here around 4, even the 4th element, left hand side also there is a space, right hand side. In case if I try to use space between, space, if I am using space between the element, the space is going to come. The element started from left, and between the elements the space is coming. The 470 pixel extra width is automatically arranged between the elements. This is what the justify content is going to control the spaces between the elements. Okay, I hope you people are aware of how this Flexbox is going to execute. I think the people are not, I think 423 people are only there. Any questions? You can even put it in a chat. You know what? Is there any disturbance in the voice? I think my audio is also clear, right?
Yeah, it's clear, sir. There is no problem now.
Why only few people joined today? It's because of IPL or what?
I think so, sir. There are 429 people watching, sir.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's about flex. Even the flex items also have some sub properties that we can even discuss in detail. So when we are working on a page. Now here, let me conclude. If you guys would like to create a layout, either float also you can use, or you can use flex also. The flex box also has some set of properties for children's. Flex container also has some set of properties. Okay, next guys, media queries I'm planning to execute. Guys, for media queries, let me please explain same media queries also into the same layout. Guys, instead of going for 3-column layout, I'm going to create one more example to explain media queries. Control S. Let me use 6-column layout. 6-column. So 6 columns. Now even the 6-column layout, if you are using flex, it will be very simple. First, all we need to do is we have to take one parent. Section is a parent. Within that section, 6 children's, 6 divisions that we are going to place. 2, 3, 4, 5. So let me see. Media queries, I'm going to explain this. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, since I haven't written any of the CSS, even all of them are displaying one by one because my elements are block level elements. Okay. Now, if I am planning to display them in a single row, to do that, we have to select the parent. Here in our case, parent is a section. Let me select a parent and try to change display flex. When I use display flex, what happens? All the children who are inside a flexible container turned into inline. Though under my flexible container, all the divisions are there. The divisions are block level elements in nature. But since I converted that parent is flexible parent, the parent responsibility is to convert a block level children into inline. Then I should also use, I am selecting all the children who are inside my section. Let me use flex 1. If I use flex 1, the children are equally shared the width of a parent. Then they started dividing a parent width equally to all the number of children who are inside. Now 6 children are there. For each children, guys, so far I am not writing media query. Now for each children, let me give a sample background. Division of first child. First type of child. So here what happened, I'm going to use background color. Let me use red color. For a first child, I give red color. So it applies only for a first guy. For a second guy, you must know how to select a second child as well using Css selectors. Nth child. Nth child of nth child of 2. The index 2 if I'll give. For second child RG, green I am giving. We go and reload. Second child become, the background color is green. Similarly, some people ask me about what is the nth child. So for all of them, this session is going to help them to understand how are we going to select a specific item using pseudo selectors. Blue I RGB blue. Next. Similarly, I wanted to select each one of them and child of 4. If I use 4, gold color I'm just using. Gold. 5, let me use silver. And last child, either a nth child of last index you can give, or if you are familiar with CSS pseudo selectors, last child also select a last element. Even last element, still if you wanted to give red, you can still use it. This is how a different background colors that I give. Guys, here, when are we going to use media queries? You guys please try to understand what is the importance of going for media queries. So once you people are familiar with media queries, I think, and one more pending important concepts will be there, that is transitions and transformations. Once I'll finish them, the CSS is almost over. Once the HTML CSS is over, and we will start JavaScript. Once the JavaScript is done, then directly I will jump into Angular. Okay, so when we are teaching JavaScript and Angular, we are going to use existing HTML and CSS. Then in such cases, don't even depend on HTML and CSS, because we are going to write HTML and CSS which we have created in these classes. So when we are concentrating on JavaScript, we will try to write code on JavaScript. We won't even write much on HTML and CSS. Okay, fine. Now, since 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the text is also, sometimes because this green is a dark color background. In the dark color background, even the text color is also dark. That is why the text is not properly visible. Now, in order to display the text properly, guys, listen carefully. For all the divisions, if I use color property to change the text, I'm giving white color. All the divisions I selected using Descendant Selector, I just gave color colon as FFF. As FFF is a hexadecimal color code of white. What is this? Hexadecimal color code of a white. I hope you guys understand the exam concept. Next, guys, let me come back and see why I picked up this example. Since I have used laptop, my laptop screen resolution is 1350. That is a width. So if I am loading the same page, listen carefully. If I am going for a smaller gadgets, even in the Moto G4, if users are loading in Moto G4, and this is how the elements are displaying, and the content which is inside that row, it is not even visible. Again, I'm repeating, the content which is inside a row which is not visible when we are loading the page in a smaller screens like Moto G4. Why we do have to test this kind of, how are we going to test? Why should we test? So guys, we never know what sort of gadgets which people are going to use it. If user is using Galaxy S5, width is, zoom level is 100%. In case if user is using iPad, the zoom level is 100%. iPad 375 into 820. 375 is the width, 812 is the height. In this case, you see here, except my laptop screen, remaining all other screens, the data is not properly visible. Remaining all other screens, the data is not visible. Understand? How are we going to adjust the elements if the users are using smaller screens? Okay, it sounds like a very simple boss. Maybe when you guys are sitting in your colleges, in each row, if 3 members is possible to place, you can arrange only 3 members in a table. Why? Because the table width is only possible to sit 3 people. In case think that I have 5 members are there in a class, but my table consists of only 3 members. If that is the case, it is tough to adjust 3 members space for a 5 member since I have a very less width. In such cases, instead of adjusting them in a row, since we don't have an available space, we should request them to display one by one. So in the website or mobile application page creation, as per the web standards, the website can have vertical scroll bar, but website should not have horizontal scroll bar. The website can have vertical scroll bar, but website should not consist of horizontal scroll bar. Why? Because guys, even if the web page has, even any web page if you take, even our ExcelR also, if you guys see, we don't have a horizontal scroll bar. You can even see that we do have vertical scroll bar. Why? Because the mouse pointer is linked to vertical scroll bar. That is encourageable, but horizontal scroll bar, the readability is the biggest issue in case if you are displaying a data from left to right. Why? Because the people are habitual to read a data from top to bottom. It is not about right to left. That's why make sure if you are a front-end developer who is going to create a layout, make sure that the layout width should not be 100%. If it is more than 100%, what happens? The bottom scroll bar comes into a picture. And one more thing, we will never know what sort of users are going to visit your web page, whether a tablet users or mobile users or phone tablet users, we don't know. Okay, so then let us come back to the concept. If user is opening in iPhone X, now iPhone X in the sense, don't ever try to target based upon the available gadgets in the market. For every gadget, there is a resolutions. We can target only based upon resolutions. In case, if the resolution is little bit bigger, I mean to say, guys, customized resolution, I'm just giving 1024. Let me create my own custom one. Edit, I'm just editing. I'm writing one custom device. Device name, test. I can also give 400 into 1024. 700 is okay. But if I'm using 1024 width, 700 is a width. Test device. Let me add it. So now, if you are selecting a test device, let me go for a test device. Now 1074 width and 100%. This is somehow visible. You see here, it is somehow visible. In case if my width is lesser than 1024, I mean to say, let me edit again. If I'm editing, even if I'm giving 768, think about it. If I'm giving 768, I'm going to check whether under 768 is it going to display properly or not. 768 is a width, that is a height. So if I'm going for 100%, now this is somehow is okay. Till 768 also it is displaying. In case if my device width is lesser than, for example, the width is 600 or something like 600. %, the scalability we are giving 100%. Now here, this is more readable. The font which is there, it is not more readable. In such cases, instead of displaying all these 6 elements inside a single row, let me display, 3 elements. If the device resolution is in between 600 to 1024, then instead of displaying them all 6 into single row, we are going to display 3. How are we going to do that? That is where, guys, listen carefully. That is where we have to use a media queries. I am writing one media, @media. This is media rules. Only screen. So even see, we guys are aware only desktop or tablet or laptop is a devices, but a print also is a device. Now, when we are writing a media queries, and we have to target whether we are writing a screen devices or print media. Generally, we have to target media queries only for a screen devices. Why? Because the people are going to watch your website based upon that screen devices. Address media only screen, and I'm going to use minimum width. Make sure that minimum width is, or else maximum width, I can say max width 600 pixels. If the maximum width is 600 pixels, I am going to write some set of CSS rules that applies. Now, in the case of this, what I am going to do, instead of all these 6 divisions in a single row, I wanted to display three divisions. Now, guys, listen carefully. If that is the case, I am going to select all the divisions. Under this particular condition, let me select all the divisions. To select that, I am targeting a division who is inside a section. Again, I am separately selecting them. Then instead of using a flex value, I am going to use width 33.3%. Guys, this is a technical conversation. Technically, I am just writing it. If that is the case, now let me go and reload. Now I wanted to check under maximum width is 600 pixels. So let me go back. Maximum 601. I'll use max width is 601. Now if I'm inspecting an element, my section, let me check what is the width. Now this width is 964. Here you can see that the pixels in the part here, even though 600 into 700, this is what I set my device in an emulator. This is emulator wherein the browser is allowing us to create our own toolbars. Okay, fine, that is fine. Let me remove this, and I'm going to resize my width, my element width. Guys, listen carefully. Now 563, you can also see that pixels keep changing. 585, 589, and if I'm going for 600 or maximum 600, if I try to reduce 601, lesser than 601, let me see here. Now 585. In the, see, if my width of device is 585, let me select each one of the children. Now if I go for a division, how division is going to look like? Let me dock this page in a separate window. Now width 33, and the flex property we have to remove. So width 33%, which is going to impact. Instead of 33%, let me give the pixels, guys. Now here I am going to give pixels like 500 pixels. I'll try to do. Now let me dock this into bottom of a page. Now developer toolbar also, either you can dock into a bottom of a page or left side of a page or right side of a page or separately new window. Now now width 500 pixels. Now if you go and check that elements, right click and import. Now you see here still 94.823. Now the width, whatever 500 pixels which you have given, that is not even impacted. Why? Because the flex one property, since you have given, now this flex one is not even allowing a width. Now their parent is also, let me see here, width 500 pixels. Now width is not impacting. It is a reason that I wanted to check. I just gave flex. Okay, next let me come back here. What I'm going to do in a smaller devices, I'll try to change. Let me see. Writing this, I'm selecting the parent, which is section, and flex direction. Instead of displaying row, I'm going to use direction. Column. I'll use column. So if it is comes into the 600 pixels, now you see guys, now if the width is maximum 601 pixels, then the items are displaying one by one. Same way, similarly, if you are going for a bigger screens, the items are displaying, side by side. Now that is how you guys have to target according to the available space which is in your gadget. Since I have a width, I have enough width inside my laptop, then my laptop resolution is 1350. If you select a complete parent, you see here the parent width, I can say 1350. In that 1350, if I try to place all the 6 children in a single row, still the rows are visible. But when you are, if your device is lesser than 600 pixels, if you are adjusting them in single row, it is not properly visible. Now maximum 600 in the sense from 0 to 600, so we are going to display them in one by one. Now this is more readable than displaying them in side by side. In order to write a conditional CSS, we are going to write a media queries. To write a conditional CSS, we are going to write a media queries. Guys, again I'm repeating, the media query is a concept. If you are planning to write a conditional CSS back to your web elements, so in order to achieve web pages, see, guys, here, since both flex and width, it will not even work. Either you must have to remove flex or you have to add width. If your children have flex property, the width is not going to impact. That's why since I gave width, it started giving an error. In order to achieve that, either we have to remove the flex property which we have used here. You can see outside of a media query condition, in the line number 10 I just gave flex 1. That's why it started giving a error. To avoid this kind of things, you remove flex property and then you try to give width property for that. If flex 1 and width, if both of them are applied for a children, then width is not going to impact. Okay, next, one more thing here. So since I targeted only the maximum width is, just give me 1 minute. Yeah, so in case if you guys would like to write for a smaller screens, even the example which I return, even it applies for 0 to maximum 601 pixels. It applies for 400, 500, 300, whatever the device screens also. Even let me resize my screen. Now if I'm resizing my screen till, see, 500, this is the last resizing. Even see till 601, 601, 603 also they are displaying in a single row, and 601, 602, even 601, my condition is working. Even if you reduce this to smaller screens, my condition is going to execute. I hope you people are aware of it. How are we going to write media queries? Sometimes, guys, media queries is only possible. Okay, responsive UI and media queries. See, responsive UI is a concept. To achieve that responsive UI, we are using media queries. There is no difference because always responsive UI is different from media queries. Someone is asking. But responsive UI is nothing but as per the device resolutions, how are we going to render elements inside a web page? That is called responsive UI. How are we going to achieve responsive UI? Using media queries. Media queries is a solution for achieving responsive UI. Okay. Next, in case, this is just a smaller examples which I picked up and I started explaining. In case, guys, the same way, wherever the elements are not properly visible in a web page, when we are rendering elements inside a web page, if the elements are not properly visible, then that's where we are going to use media queries to adjust the elements in a proper way. I hope you people are aware of it. Okay. So like that, you can also keep writing minimum width, and now I just used only maximum width. In case sometimes if you wanted to target it for only one certain device, minimum of this pixels and maximum of any other pixels. In that way, media query rules also you can even keep writing. So maybe another media query I am writing. Media is a keyword @media. I am targeting only for a screen devices, and min width, minimum width. So maybe if I am targeting 500 pixels, and max width, maximum width if I am targeting for 700 pixels, which means that whatever the media query rules which I am going to write under this media, so it applies only for minimum width 500 and maximum width 700 pixels. Remaining other scenarios, my media query CSS rules won't even apply. Only normal CSS which are outside of media query is going to execute. Okay, that's why, guys, when we are working on real time, so we are not going to write much media queries. Why? Because we are targeting responsive design by using third-party frameworks like Bootstrap or Foundation.js or Material, Google Material, Angular Material Design. These are the different frameworks are there in order to make your web page more responsive. In everywhere we are going to use Bootstrap more, and some places we are also using Angular Material Design or Google Material Design. Our W3 schools also has W3 CSS for making our responsive. I hope you people are aware of. In case, see, if you are very good at CSS core concepts, sometimes when you are going for interviews, our companies will also ask you people to achieve responsiveness using CSS media queries, depending on a third-party library or third-party frameworks, which is costing a lot. To avoid this cost, that is where people are going to use responsive web design frameworks. Bootstrap has bunch of ready-made components in order to make your web page responsive. I hope you people are comfortable with writing media queries now. So again, I am repeating, media queries is only possible, is required if your web elements are going outside of a particular screen. If the elements are within the screen max width, is it? Yes. Satyasri, @media only screen and max width indicates screen max width. You are right. So media query allows a developer to keep targeting for a device as per their width. So now I'll give you one live real-time example, my dear friends. Even if you go for our website ExcelR, if you keep talking, since this data science course training in Hyderabad, my web page is displaying in this way in my desktop version. In case if the users are opening the same ExcelR website, data science course in Hyderabad page, if I go for a smaller screens, now you see here in the smaller screens also, I have changed it. I have realigned my items in a proper way to display. Why we have realigned? If I am not realigning them and the users are going to face difficulties to read the data properly. So if user is opening an iPad and we have targeted instead of 24%, the zoom level always 100%. If you are going for 100% zoom level, just listen carefully. So this is how in iPad we are displaying the data in a proper way. Why we have targeted? Because if you are not even realigning the items according to the available width, and our pages are not going to display properly in a available screens. If those guys are not displaying, ultimately we are going to face the problems. If the design is distracted, smaller devices, automatically users are going to lose the interest. If users are losing interest and building an applications, if users are not attracted by our design, ultimately we will definitely lose a contrast of our users. If users are not happy with our web design, ultimately we will definitely lose a business. To avoid this kind of problems, the media queries are going to help us a lot. In case if you don't want to write your own media queries to adjust the elements according to the available width and the height of an element, you can also achieve responsive web design by using responsive web design framework such as Bootstrap or Foundation or Material Design. Out of all these three, Bootstrap has grabbed a much market, and Bootstrap is dead easy. And I'll also explain about Bootstrap in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so these are the concepts that we discussed today, media queries. So, and also I had a discussion about other layout related concepts using float. How can we create a 3-column or any column layout? That is up to you guys. So if you are familiar with 2-column, 3-column, 4-column, it is just a matter of adding new properties for different items. Then that's why you guys must be familiar with column layout. Okay, from next week onwards, since we had covered HTML and CSS much, so that what I am going to do, we will be giving you some sort of assignments in the next week on everyday basis. We'll upload the assignments in a drive. Everybody has to complete those assignments. We were waiting for some set of portions to complete. Why? Because from the day one, if we started giving an assignments, you people will get confused. That's why from next week, we are planning to give some set of assignments. All the assignments will be uploaded in our drive. Understand? Next, guys, I'm planning to explain about transition and transformation properties. Transition, transformation properties. If you wanted to add some sort of animations back to your HTML elements using CSS, we'll be able to use transition and transformation. So in the same layout, let me apply transition and transformation in the 6-column layout, whatever we executed. So let me see few concepts which I am going to explain. Transition. Guys, many e-commerce applications, if you guys are looking on hover, the size, the width of an element is going to change. How are we going to change? Some sort of animations, how are we going to apply on top of an element? I'll tell you, guys, I'm selecting all the division. Here I'll try to use transform colon scale. Scale, I'm using 1.1, x-axis 1.1 and y-axis 1.2. If I use x and y values, the scale, let me see here on h over of a division. So this transform property I am planning to apply on h over of a division. I don't want to apply on normal division. When users are h overing on a division, let me select that h over pseudo property here. Division colon h over semicolon transform scale 1.1 and 1.2. Guys, listen carefully. On H over, you can see that the x-axis 1 in the sense 100%, 1.1 in the sense 110%. Even height also 1.2. See on H over, you can see there's some sort of animations. Don't even expect avatar kind of animations by using CSS. Only a basic animations that can be possible by using CSS. Got my point? Like that. So this is a kind of animation scale. So transform is a property. You can see here in the line number 14. Transform is a property. Transform is a property. Scale is a value. And for the scale, it will allow user to increase the zoom level. It will allow user to increase the zoom level of an element, either x-axis or y-axis. The first parameter indicates x-axis and the second parameter indicates y-axis. My screen is 100% blurred. So Himawant, are you experiencing the same issue?
No, sir, your voice is audible only. Hello?
Maybe it is an issue from a student end, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, sir.
Okay, no issues. Everybody are asking about attendance link, sir.
Yeah, I'm just providing that.
Okay, so now in the transition, I started applying only use scale. Similarly, we also have a different kind of values for transform property. Scale is one possible value. Then one more is translate is there, and skew is also there, and rotate is there. Guys, sometimes see if you are keep going for some our data science, even our pages also, you see here the contact button, whatever we created here. So we have changed the I mean to say the transition. Now generally the contact as it has to display from left to right, but we have rotated this element 90 degrees. Right click and inspect and see the property how we have used rotate property for this element. This division, somewhere if you can see transform rotate, I think you see here minus 90 degrees rotation I have used. That to position fixed also we have used. That is where even if I keep moving the position fixed we have used. There is a position property. Yes. You see here the parent position is fixed and the element transform property we give minus 90 degrees. If I'll uncheck this, now as usual those guys are displaying in a left to right. You see here this is displaying left to right, but if you don't want to display them left to right, if you want to display them in a if you are planning to rotate an element 90 degrees, that is also possible, guys. Okay, Mahesh, and we will also provide some sort of notes. So I hope many people are asking about notes, and our team is also providing a notes from next week. Okay. And tomorrow and day after tomorrow, as usual, there will be no classes since because of weekends. And if possible, my team is going to assign some sort of exercises or assignments or case studies to practice. So we'll also give this complete code. We'll try to put it in a drive tomorrow. So kindly access that the code, whatever we discussed so far, by going to our drive. And remaining animation properties, transition properties, that we can discuss in a next class. Okay, because we have only 15 minutes to go, and I just wanted to reserve this 15 minutes for a question and answers. So if you people are having any questions, kindly ask in the chat so that I'm going to give answers for all your questions. When someone is asking how are we going to deploy code in our servers, guys, the code deployment is not part of this session. If you want, you guys can even contact our team. So our team is going to help you out. How are you going to deploy? Deploying in a physical servers is different story, and cloud servers are dedicated servers, virtual servers, different way. Because for a cloud, if you wanted to move, then we should also aware of DevOps. How are you going to navigate to a different pages within the same page? We have links for different pages which is not visible before. After clicking on the link, page to be loaded in the same page. For that, we have to use internal page linking and internal page moving, and by using anchor that can be possible. Different pixel and percentage. Someone is asking, guys, pixels and percentages. These guys are two different unit of measures while creating a layout. Pixels, generally it is depends upon available width of a different gadgets which you are loading. So for example, if you guys are using maybe a laptop which is 11 inches, the resolution is different than 13 inches laptop or 15 inches or 14 inches laptop. The width is vary, the pixel width is may vary from device to device. When it comes to the percentages, that is also for calculating the width of a element or a width of a device, but 100% is completely calculated based upon the available width. So the pixels may vary from device to device, but percentage won't even vary. Percentage will be fixed even based upon the device space which is available horizontal. Can we build the WordPress theme? WordPress is completely different concept, my dear friends. Guys, learn, but don't overlearn. Now, you guys should understand what is the main objective of this training. The main objective of this training is we wanted to explain how we're going to create the presentation layer using Angular. Before explaining Angular framework, we started explaining all the concepts from a HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the foundation level. Then we'll move on to the another concepts. In which platform you are doing this code? Platform. See, platform means it's a different meaning, guys. Generally, web applications will work on Windows platform. If you are asking me an editor, I started using Sublime Text. Layout. Grid is completely different than Flex. Grid, you will be able to arrange an element both X and Y axis, and Z axis also you can able to place an elements. But when it comes to Flexbox is going to render elements in X axis. Sir, is it possible to develop one server using JavaScript? But we cannot develop one server. We can use a server to deploy our JavaScript applications. We cannot build our own server using JavaScript. JavaScript alone is not possible to create our own servers. Server concept is completely different. In styles, can we do like class name 1 dot class name 2? Yes, we can also give. This multiple groups. are you going to use this code in app.component as well as component CSS? Of course, we can use. If someone says, percentage means flexible width, of course it is flexible width. Yes, guys. Now Angular is demanded framework. If you learn Angular, if you are perfect in Angular, 100% you can get a job. If you build WordPress themes, yes, we can also build WordPress themes using HTML, CSS. What is the difference between anchor tag and link tag? Anchor is for linking between multiple pages or one application to another application or one portion of a page to another portion of a page. Whereas coming to link tag is for linking external CSS back to your HTML. Sir, I use Visual Studio Code and written media query, but that is not applied to my page. If it is not applying, maybe you might have done wrong minimum width and maximum width. You please try to check your code properly and check in that respective resolutions only. If media query is not working, you must have to write a meta tag. If meta tag, sometimes if the latest browsers without a meta tag, it is going to understand. But the old browsers, if you are using old browsers, the meta name viewport and content width is equal to device width initial scale is equal to 1. This meta tag is mandatory when you are working with media query. But since in our example, I haven't used that meta tag because my version of a browser is latest browser. Without this meta tag, my media query can work. But unlike other browsers, all the browsers won't even understand media queries straightforward. In order to write media queries, make sure that you have to write a meta tag. Sir, if we use image as background, can we use paragraph aligned to getting the matter in center? See, that is up to you, your wish. See, paragraph is for placing the text and background image is for setting back image as the background for your container. But aligning of a text, that won't even impact on your image, background image. Background is different property and text is different. Okay. Next, use of media queries is for conditional CSS. It is right, but in order to apply responsive web design, that is where we supposed to write conditional CSS. Okay. Is there any tag like what center tag do? See, center tag, instead of using a center tag, we can go for a CSS property, text align center, or you can also use margin to place an element center. Can we do a webinar like web page in Angular? We can also do webinar, we can also do live sessions, anything can possible. Sir, where we get the assignments? Through Telegram or any other? So we are going to upload all the assignments in a drive, and drive access, I think my team is going to provide for all the students. Guys, this course is created for 40 hours. Okay, so every day closed around 2 hours. Then we are planning to wind up this in 40 hours. Paid media query framework. See, all the front-end frameworks are free, so you need not to worry about it. But paid media query frameworks are also there. But you don't see if something is available free, why do we choose paid media query frameworks? There is no much load performance when you are loading media queries. Conditionally, it will try to load, but there is no much impact on a load. Which one is better, Flex or Float? But ultimately Float has a lot of drawbacks. Flex only you have to use always. You have to use Flex. The float is a old way of creating a layout. As I already said, in case if dynamically when you are preparing a layout, as long as if the elements are keep adding into your, block level element, dynamically, for example, today there are two elements. If you are keeping two elements in mind, you can adjust width. Tomorrow, if four elements comes into your same parent, then the float if you have used, again you must have to resize and you have to compromise or you have to recalculate the width. And day after tomorrow, if two elements are also there, then every time you can't even add width. So to avoid this kind of problems, then you have to go for flexible container. Instead of using media queries, we can use Bootstrap. Yes, Bootstrap is also, it is a predefined framework which has predefined media query rules. Yes, boss, TypeScript is used in Angular. So you must have to learn TypeScript as well to understand Angular. Is that indentation matter anywhere? Indentation matters any language, not only in HTML. Everywhere indentation is matters. Why? Because we have to write a readable code. So in order to write a readable code, the indentation matters a lot. To create a web page, do we need license for publishing it? I don't think license is not required, guys. If you are using open source technologies, license is not mandatory. If you are using any of this, backend technologies, which are not free, then license is mandatory. Sir, to create a web page, media query is only used for checking resolutions, or does it has any functions? I haven't explained media query is only for checking resolution. No, media queries is for writing a CSS based upon available gadgets to arrange an elements responsively in a different resolutions. Text align and float. Text align is only for a text. Float is for layout. There is no relationship between these two. See, anyhow, float we should not even use since it is outdated. Better to learn more about Flex. In this session, we are not going to cover React. This is only Angular. Maybe so our management can plan for React in future. Someone is saying Bootstrap is for booting up operating system. Then how is related to media queries? It's completely a wrong perception. Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap. See, Bootstrap is a keyword which will be always used to boost up. And in operating system also, there are many cases we must have to bootstrap some sort of functions and modules. Then there is one more framework called Bootstrap. Don't get confused about it. Flex direction property is not working in my laptop, sir. Any suggestions how to get it? No, it's not about specific to your laptop. Flex direction. Make sure that your element is display flex or not. If your parent is display flex, flex direction will work. If the parent does not have display flex, then flex direction won't work. You please try to check whether flex direction, display flex is applied for your parent or not. JS is completely different from TS. Why? Because those guys are completely different family. Again, many people are asking, can we build WordPress themes? Yes, of course. The theme is nothing but a presentation part. If you know how to build a UI, then you can also use the same concept in building WordPress themes. Some people are asking, Django or Angular? Those guys are completely, different stack. Django comes under Python family, Angular comes under front-end JavaScript family. Python works on middleware, whereas coming to Angular works on front-end. Django is completely an inbuilt web development framework. Those guys are not completely, they are not same, they are different. See, nothing is easy, nothing is difficult. What is media queries? So you will you teach TypeScript also? Yes, some sort of TypeScript also we will be teaching. Can we host this Angular code into WordPress themes? No, that is not possible. For that, a separate integration is required. Okay, guys, that's all about today's session. So let us meet on Monday. Thank you so much for your participation. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you all.